where survivors were reaching out as they were locked down with their perpetrators at home and unable to access services. So this is an opportune time that we are having this meeting, and our objectives are that we want to map a way forward in terms of strengthening our response systems when it comes to sexual gender-based violence, to scrutinize and question a response from you in terms of thought-provoking analysis and solution making that will come from this meeting. With this in mind, I hope this meeting will be as fruitful as it can be in regards to strengthening and enhancing accountability in response to SGBV during emergencies and pandemics. I thank you.
Thank you very much for outlining the objectives. Maybe before you go, I thought it's you again who is going to present the work of Musasa. Yeah. Maybe people may want to know you better. So it's you again who will present on the work of Musasa. I think we are here for a noble cause from the objectives that were highlighted.
Okay. As Musasa, we work with various partners and stakeholders, many of who are present today. And our objective as an organization is to achieve gender equality and harness innovative ideas. We employ a collaborative approach by sharing responsibilities to implement gender interventions that are responsive to their needs and interests. Specific strategies include multi-sectoral collaborations involving diverse stakeholders, civil society organizations, women and girls, community groups, coalitions and networks. As Musasa, we recognize the importance of effective responses to gender inequalities that require coordinated, inclusive and broad multi-sectoral collaborations. To eliminate gender discriminatory practices, gender-based violence and adolescent pregnancies, the social norms that support these practices and behaviors need to be changed. Social norm changes entails working through multiple channels to create social movement and mobilization of groups and other individuals to make decisions. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, what we will witness if we advance an agenda for transformative social change that builds upon the work taking place in this regard is a re-imaging of what it means to acknowledge gender inequality in this lifetime. Not only will we feel more empowered by public revelations of interpersonal and systemic manifestations of gender inequality, or by the solidarity building which results from coming together to articulate our opposition to these realities. We will see ourselves as the ones who will principally responsibly for their redefinition. In working together to advance this aim, we will disrupt what it means to be normal and what we do to challenge the norm. This is an effort to abandon our collective complacency. It is also an effort to take full advantage of our roles in parliament, in private enterprises, in academia, in civil society, in grassroots movements, to rewrite policies, to challenge corporate cultures, and to teach and sensitize others, to engage in social programming, and to highlight the issues which plague our generation. As we engage in a critical conversation about sexual gender-based violence and discuss our roles and responsibilities to make substantive changes within our respective spaces, I encourage you to ride the wave of energy that has come from taking about inequality in the most overt and pervasive forms. Let us work together to take off the blinders which shield all other forms of gender inequality from seeing the public light. This needs not amount of mere naming and shaming, but the building of ally networks, the emergence of collaborative spaces for learning and sharing, and the articulation of efforts to make our society more just, harmonious, and equitable, where all have the opportunity to participate and live in peace and freedom. This is our time to change what is normal and work together to redefine what is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sasa. I think in one saying it says, "Good wine needs no bush." In other words, I'm not going to add to what she has said. You have heard it, isn't it? On our program, we are supposed to go for tea break, but I think we are going to continue, and then when tea is ready, we'll go for tea. So maybe we'll go on our next. That is, what do we know about sexual gender-based violence cases in emergence and the pandemic situation? I think today it will be Musasa, and then it will come on plenary, isn't it? This is where your voices will also be heard. So for the time being, let us brace up for Musasa. I call upon Rotina, who is now going to take us through, maybe to explain. I know you are converted, but when you meet, you always learn new things, isn't it? Because some of you will say, we have heard it for long. But yes, you have heard it for long. What has happened? Are any changes taking place? Let us all hear what they have. So, Musasa, Rotina, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chimboza. I think I wanted to use a bit of technology here. But I guess I'll give it later so that we can just give a brief background to why we are talking about pandemics and emergencies in the same sentence with sexual gender-based violence, or in short, SGBV. I'll interchangeably use sexual gender-based violence, or I'll just say SGBV. But what we have come to understand, learning from other countries as well as learning from the experience that we have had at Musasa, is that emergencies and pandemics, they bring a unique setting or a unique setting for sexual gender-based violence, whereby we have noticed or we have realized trendfully across countries in the regions or even in other regions that when there is a pandemic or when there is an emergence, sexual gender-based violence also tend to increase. And unfortunately or fortunately, we have been experiencing from last year different kinds of pandemics and emergencies. Last year, Taka experienced Cyclone Idai, It was an emergency that came to us when we were least prepared, but that brought its own unique way of doing things. And this year again, we are again faced with Cyclone Idai, which is again bringing a unique way of responding to sexual gender-based violence cases. And we have noticed that during the beginning of the lockdown, we were receiving more cases of gender-based violence. And it's because, like what has already been alluded to, there were issues of the home being an incubation hub where it was easy to perpetrate because you are in the same room with the victim, you are interacting on a daily basis, and that already that poses a great risk to the women and girls that we deal with. Again, when we look at Cyclone Idai and what happened with the houses being blown away with no social protection for women and girls, it meant that the girls were already more vulnerable again to pandemics. And this is not only unique to Zimbabwe, but this is also unique to other countries. If we have watched the news, if we have read in other countries, where in South Africa again, cases of gender-based violence increased during the lockdown. We look at China again, cases of gender-based violence increased during the lockdown. We look at other countries, France, you name it, where the setting was the same of lockdown. And again, the statistics were also the same, achieved an upward trend, and thereby again showing the vulnerability of women and girls, not only their vulnerability, but also showing the abuse that women and girls were facing at that particular time. And the purpose, and we are saying, during emergencies, we want to come up as decision makers to say, what are the provisions? What can we provide for women and girls during this time in order for us to effectively respond in a timely manner to the needs of women and girls who are facing especially SGBV? As we go down into the program, we are going to talk about what are the accountabilities that we can find. How can we strengthen our response system? How can we be accountable as decision makers to say there are provisions that will make life easier or that will make our response to the women and girls much easier? So as Musasa, we have realized that through our work, our toll-free lines, we had mobile toll-free lines working during the lockdown. We also had WhatsApp platforms working, or our social media platforms, where we amplified our voice during this time of the pandemic, to say any woman can reach to us through any of our platforms, so that we can be able to reach out to them, because it was a difficult moment for us to reach out, but it was a necessary moment for us to combat COVID-19. But then we realized in the measures that we had put as a country, there are also underlying circumstances that were emerging in terms of our response to sexual gender-based violence. This is why Musasa went into a social media campaign, into an aggressive media campaign, where we were giving options for women to reach out to us, and also reaching out to us through our community-based counselors. So we are coming together and saying, in emergencies and in pandemics, we see an upsurge of cases of gender-based violence. In the first week of the lockdown, we received over 500 cases of gender-based violence in a week, which we normally receive in a month or so. And then up to now, we have received over 2,500 cases of gender-based violence cases that are coming through our toll-free lines. And some, of course, because there's this mobility, some are now able to come out and talk to us at the office. So we are saying, as policymakers, what can we do? How can we think around? And we want us to come up with those solutions from us here, not for Musasa to prescribe, isn't it? But for us to say, okay, now that we have seen these upward trends, now that we have seen that during COVID-19, during pandemics, there's this unique setting, How are we going to help each other going forward as policymakers? What are the solutions that we can think about? What are the homegrown ideas that we can come up with? Where can we borrow other ideas? And why? How can we use them here? How can we localize ideas? How can we localize our response to SGBV? So this is the main reason why we are here. This is the main reason why we had to come here, so that we can brainstorm together, so that we can come up with solutions. Again, as Musasa, we responded to Cyclone Idai. We were in Chimanimani and Chipinge, again responding to gender-based violence in those areas because of the cyclone. And again, we realized that during emergencies, there is also gender-based violence. So when we respond to any emergency, we should also keep in mind how we are going to respond to sexual gender-based violence, how we are going to respond to gender-based violence, what are the measures that are being put in place, so that when a COVID budget is being made, Mr. Chimpos, there's also a realization that there are going to be unique settings in this pandemic that are related to gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotina, for clarifying why we are here. I think what she has said is we have come here not to listen to Musasa, but we have come here. Musasa has elaborated the challenge, the problem that is befitting our provinces. We are now talking about provinces because it's no longer Harare. It's Marsh West, it's Midlands, it's also Harare. So we are saying they've presented the challenge of sexual gender-based violence during pandemics, and they are saying, as legislators, parliamentarians, from the Gender Commission, as chiefs, what are we to do? Can we have homegrown solutions that we can use? Yes, we can use the book, but sometimes the book, the information in the book does not match the areas that we live in. So that's why we are here to say, let's come with a homegrown solution so that we can fight, which can help us to fight the pandemic. I'm sure that's loud and clear. So thank you very much, Rotina. And I'm sure the Musasa, they've done their part. Musasa is a complementary friend to the government, and their role, they've already complementary role. They've established toll-free lines. And also I heard them, the cases 500. They are not for Midlands, I hope, and they are not for Mashonaland West. These are for Harare only. The presentation they had prepared it for Harare. But I'm sure if they add Marsh East, they add Marsh West and the Midlands, I think they will have higher figures. So we are here to think of ways of how to curb the pandemic. So having said that, maybe we may think around that as we go for tea, and when we come back, I'm sure this will be our homework. Yes.
I wanted to suggest that we go to the next area.
We'll tell them to wait with the tea. Maybe I will skip on the keynote address, and we'll get the keynote address afterwards. But I think in the same spirit, we need to, in the church we say in the same spirit, we want to continue with our issue. That's strengthening and enhancing accountability response to SGBV during emergencies and pandemics. I will now call upon again Musasa to lead us in that. I'm sure from here we will be having written notes on ways, on strategies that we are going to use as we depart from this resort area. So Musasa, can you come on board and then we continue discussing? When they are hungry, that's when we'll break for tea, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chimbosa. I'll take off my jacket. I think it's getting warmer because of the lights. Okay, so we are going to make this a plenary where we are going to discuss how we can strengthen our accountability when we are talking about sexual gender-based violence. I think I've highlighted in a nutshell what we know about pandemics and sexual gender-based violence and what we have come across, and also taking learnings from other countries. And we are saying, now let's open it up, and how can we strengthen accountability? What are our ideas as decision makers, as people representing people, and also as policy makers in our different capacities? So I will now open this time for us to have a discussion. How can we continue to strengthen accountability in our response to sexual gender-based violence? I'm seeing a lot of brains in here. And just for the record, we are live. Some might not know that we are now live. And other people are joining us as well from different parts of the country. Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm Virginia Mwanigwa, CEO of Zimbabwe Gender Commission. And from the presentations that have been made already, talking about the current situation we are going through under COVID, but also looking at even the response to Cyclone Idai, I'm just wanting us to think about or reflect on what our gender budgeting means, and whether gender budgeting is only going to be concerned about what happens within the Ministry of Women Affairs, or it's supposed to be very clearly running across line ministries. Because, for example, if you look at any response to any pandemic or crisis, it's not necessarily Ministry of Women Affairs that leads that response. It's Ministry of Local Government,
Yes.
Public Service and Social Welfare. To what extent, for example, is that ministry ensuring that the gender budgeting is being done within that? So fortunately, the keynote, or I guess let me not say that, I was going to put it on the spot, but it's something for us to reflect on and say, to what extent does any response, national response to any pandemic, also position gender issues? As the Zimbabwe Gender Commission, from our own monitoring work that we've been doing, we have questions around issues of representation of gender within the response, representation of women within the decision-making structures of the response, and then also problem analysis within the response. Because if we look at Cyclone Idai, because as Gender Commission last year, we were able to do a gender analysis of the national response, and one of the issues was the problem analysis usually misses the gender dimension. We heard about old women being given sanitary way because zviri kungopiwa kunzi muri kupiwa. So that's a very clear example of you not linking your response to the particular problem, because in the mbuya vane imwe problem but vari kupiwa sanitary way, and she's then wondering what is she supposed to do with it, because as she apply, of course she can give kwazukuru, but she also has her own needs. So I'm hoping I'm not going roundabout, but the point I'm making is to say, gender budgeting yedu apa ndopa inofana kunge ichishanda, ndopa tinofanira kunge tichiona the resources that the ministry, relevant ministries, have put around to responding to the specific gender dimensions of any situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think she's highlighting quite important issues around budgeting and also around representation. Yes, ma'am.
I think we should also avoid talking to ourselves as activists when we talk of response mechanisms to pandemics. What I know from what CEO said when we visited Cyclone Idai, the war response yema-pandemics inocoordinatwa ne-civil protection unit, but I know from all our conversations we don't involve them, especially at national level. I know tazoenda kunana kuchimani takanoona vachitudza all the wonderful work that they were doing, but I think at national level, both as civil society, as gender commission, we should have an opportunity to engage the civil protection unit so that when they develop their response mechanisms, they also mainstream issues of GBV, sexual violence, in their strategies. I think they are a key state actor or a key duty bearer to whatever response we might design during pandemics. Just to say.
Thank you very much. I think that's very, very critical that we should take cognizance of the presence of the civil protection unit at the national level and involve them from day one of our planning during any pandemic or any emergency. Any other thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
That there's also lack of capacity within the key sectors, the key actors to respond to GBV in emergencies. And it is an effort that the ministry is currently trying to intervene within, engaging the civil protection unit, the health sector, the service, like the police victim-friendly units, to make sure that they have the skills to be able to respond to GBV in emergencies. So that is actually work in progress.
Thank you very much. So there's already work in progress that already is inclusive, which is taking a multi-sector approach whereby the VFU is also roped in to respond to SGBV issues during pandemics. Yes.
I also think that our efforts have not been very effective, especially in responding to emergencies, mainly because I think there is lack of coordination in the sector, and each and every one of us is running their own race. But I feel that if we are more coordinated and if we engage with processes, I think we can achieve much. For example, like we are speaking of the civil protection units, there is an emergency response plan. There was another one which was launched last year, and then there's another one which was also developed this year. And if you look at the document, there is a protection cluster. And under the protection cluster, there is a section, a sub-section on responding to gender-based violence in emergencies. So I think also it is very critical for us as a sector to really engage with the processes, to engage with what the civil protection unit is doing, and also to be well coordinated amongst ourselves, and not to really run with our organization's name, but that we may do it for a good cause.
Yes, I think that's also very important that we start to activate the emergency response plan so that we already have something, we already have a document. What is needed now is the effectiveness of the implementation of our plan. How then do we navigate around Cyclone Idai, for example? How then do we navigate around COVID-19, for example? Because each of those emergencies, they are different in nature, and they pose different challenges to women and girls around SGBV. Yes? Yes, ma'am.
Now, I've heard Virginia talk of the gender budgeting. I want to say this is an area which is lacking. When we do our budgeting, I remember last time when we were in Victoria Falls, we tried to push for this gender budgeting. But you find out as the Minister of Finance brings his budgeting to Parliament, this is not talked about. And even this issue of gender-based violence is not there. So I think this is a very important program where you are bringing awareness to us, so that maybe next time when we have our budgeting, there is a need to include these emergencies, because we find they are not there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So she's bringing an important point that even in Parliament, there is silence around GBV in emergencies. There is silence around gender budgeting in emergencies. So Parliament can agree that COVID-19 is an emergency, but gender-based violence is not talked about. So it's not an emergency. So when you now want to effectively respond, you might face challenges in your response, because it's not an emergency, but we are saying it's an emergency in an emergency. So, so if Cyclone Idai is an emergency, GBV automatically also becomes an emergency. But someone has to say it. And I'm glad our parliamentarians are here. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I was listening. Chinatsodzwa kuti pane basa. What I looked at, ndaona kuti panoda kuita, says parliamentarians, panoda kuita review of the constitution, and my legal gaps aripo. Like as you were alluding to, kuti so like right now, when there was lockdown, we can anticipate, you were talking of violence chete, but we can even anticipate kuti vaidanana stere kana vaita zvavaita, vanogona kunge vati vane nhumbu dziri unwanted izvozvo. Hazvina kunge zvatariswa. Apa tine mutemo termination on pregnancy uya TOP. Kana kuti uchaziva kuti munhu apedza ipapo aita unwanted pregnancy yake, omira sei nemutemo uya nekurema kwawo. Saka we have to review legal framework yedu, tonyatsotsvaka magaps aripo anobata kuti munhukadzi anoshungurudzika sei, especially paita pandemic ipapo. Ndaonazve kuti we should suggest ma-intervention strategies to empower and eliminate that violence. Saka sema MPs, panda kuti nemi ma-civil society, vari ndazwa umwe achitaura kuti we work in tiri scattered. You should get together. Moshanda nema-parliamentarians. Toona kuti pakashota pacho ndepapi. So that kuti tibudirire kushanda nemutemo. We now look at I make reference now we compare ne best practice vari kumbozviita kuti vari kuzviita sei, vari kuzvigona sei, tozvitarisisa izvozvo. Saka ndiri kuona kuti panodiwa legislative and judicial reforms, ndiko kuti zviite ranani kuti tione kuprotecta munhukadzi panyaya yepandemic, especially ndataura iyoyo right now hazvisati zvanyanyobuda. Takatanga March 21 lockdown. Count it. Very soon, ma 9 months muchaona kuti anenge aita sei. A lot of them are unwanted. Muchaona kuti imi maona kuti panga pane increase violence. Muchaona kuti pane increase unwanted pregnancy. Increase yema-STIs. Increase pamwe kutozvisungirira munhu obvisa oita abortion nekuzviuraya. I stop there for now.
Thank you very much. I think she's bringing a plethora of very important issues, starting from the legal framework of an emergency or a pandemic. For example, during the first week of the first 2 weeks, you couldn't go out, you couldn't travel. So the woman was constrained. Even though she was facing violence, she couldn't go to the next house because you cannot visit. She couldn't run to the next police station because you do not have a letter. In rural areas, there was issues of transportation. You need to get to the clinic within 72 hours, but there is no transportation. And that means already you have no access to the medical attention that you need when you face SGBV. You have no access again to the police station because you do not have a letter of movement. You do not have access to justice because the courts were what? Were closed. So we need to understand or to have a legal framework that govern our emergencies and pandemics. How do we proceed when there is an emergency of this nature? How do we proceed when there is an emergency like Cyclone Idai? And she also talked about learning. What are the best practices? for women and girls. This was very new to us. We didn't know how to navigate around it, but we also learn from other countries. How do they then respond to SGBV? What can we tap into? What can we learn? Yes, Miss Matisha.
I think the other issue is to look into the national response structures. For example, COVID. If I'm informed well, I know Ministry of Women Affairs is in the provincial structures for COVID response task force, but in the national COVID response, the national task force, the relevant Ministry of Women Affairs is not there. So I think there's need to relook and interrogate the structures themselves to be gender sensitive. For
Yes.
women also to be involved, not just women, but the necessary government institutions.
That's very important. What are the structures like? Because maybe that's where the challenge is coming from. And then we cascade, we interrogate, we say, no, I think there's a gap that needs to be addressed. And this gap.
You can speak for yourself. Are you in the national structure?
No. We are at provincial and district level.
Yes.
For Harare. Just for Harare.
The national, you house the national task.
But for the other provinces, yes.
What do you mean they house when they are not part of it?
As in Harare province falls within the geographic space.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll call to you and then I'll come to you.
Maita basa. Inini ndine mubvunzo kwamuri semusasa kuti pakaita Coventry tine nzvimbo dzemumaruzevha zvakafanana kumaruzevha vakaita wana Mola kumaruzevha chaiko chaiko wanga vasina ruzivo wa zvinhu zvakangoitika toti kwaita dambudziko rekuti kune waitisana wabatwa waitisana mimba zvisiri pamutemo semusasa wakauya kwamuri munovagamuchira here kuti muvabatsire padambudziko ravanenge vasangana naro paCoventry?
Yes, as Musasa will respond to all emergencies. If a woman comes to our offices or via the phone or toll-free lines, it's our mandate to actually assist them. So we'll do our best in the best interest of the survivor or victim to assist them. Yes, ma'am.
So I'll speak to that issue first and then those end up in question here director kumsasa, but I think what that brings out is we need to also map who are some of the service providers around this issue, because there's Musasa, there's also our ministry, there's also different players. So it's important so that we map toziva kuitira kuti ana honorable muchishanda nevanhu kunze kana kudhuze nekwamuri kuine mashelter, instead yekuti munhu azoti ada kusvika kuno kukure anogona kutanga achiziya where they are. So at some point I think it will be useful for the colleagues kuti mungotipa a map of where are the different areas where people can go. But coming from the Gender Commission, for me the question when we talk about SGBV or GBV is iyo gender yacho imbori papi mu national agenda, because it's not likely to become an issue, or SGBV or GBV is not likely to become an issue if the gender issue yacho chayo chayo, because gender is not just about the violence. It's so many things. Where is it in the national agenda? So we need to also think about that, because as long as it's Siri Papo, it means even Ministry of Women Affairs will not find itself in the national task force, because I score is a very important component of the work, or who we are. And then even when you look the point that our director raised, the architecture actually could respond. How do people make it into that architecture? I found this out during 2000, before the elections, where we were asking questions about who are the ones that preside over elections. That's just an example. Bear with me. Who are the ones who preside over elections? And what was very clear is for any government-led or public-led process, vanhu vanopinda muma-positions or muma-task force is based on in-position situation. so zvikanzi mapermanent secretary ndo anonopinda oita ndiwo task force yacho. Zvikanzi maminister ndo vanonopinda voita task force. Zvikanzi madistrict administrator ndo vanopinda voita task force. Zvikanzi provincial, zvikanzi wokupresidium. So this comes back to now my question, where is gender on our agenda? As long as we still have a situation where out there, not just GBV, but out there is that imbalance in terms of representation on decision making. You never get gender becoming an issue because it's who makes it to the table. And this tukutaura pano. Vasiri pano havasi kutaura zvatiri kutaura. So chero tikati tichasunga zvatinosunga tichasunga tisu tiri pano. So by the same token, the ones who come or who are in decision making are the ones who say, but tasiya analysis of gender issues. So if women are not sitting there, it will not come out.
Yes.
So we need to also be going back. It's not going to come out here a subsector if at a national level it's not a priority.
Amen.
Yes, you bring out very important critical issues here. Issues of representation. How are we represented? Will this become an issue if there's no adequate representation? Who is going to think SGBV when there is COVID-19? Who is going to push the agenda for gender-based violence during a cyclone? So we are saying, let's interrogate, let's question, let's ask these questions. And since we are all here, we hope we are going to push the agenda forward until someone hears us and until a resolution or a decision is made, right? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I was also looking at grassroots. Violence inonyanyobva ikoko kugrassroots. Saka kunofanira kunge kune representation. Kuti Ministry of Women's Affairs ngaite up down to the grassroots kuti mune ndikati kai kune group rinoshanda nekuona iyoyo zveviolence handiti, so that they can report directly ipapo paground pezvaitikira. Ndiri kubatanidza nezvatabva kutaura the previous speaker kuti nothing for us without us. Zvinorongwa nevarume, zvorongwa nani nevakuru vamwe, yeti mukadzi iye patoita problem nemusikana iye havagoni kuzvitaurira. Saka kuti vari paground, vari ivo, pane a group inomirira izvozvo within their ward. A ward structure vanototi mainhingi vatorohwa kana kuti mainhingi vaita problem vanotomhanya kwanhingi zvotoactivatwa from there zvichichikwira kuenda kwazvinofanira kudini kuenda zviri fresh kana nemapicture kana nei fresh reports zvobva zvaitwa vachibva vamanya kumapurisa ipapo zvichibva zvatongofamba zvakadaro. So I feel kuti representation should be grassroots kusvika ikwire, not from top ngaitangire kuzasi uko ichichienda uko zviite zvifambe zvine coordination.
Thank you very much. I think she's also bringing out an important point. What are the local structures that can be put in place in order to respond effectively to SGBV? Do we need the VFU in the communities, in the wards, in the villages when there is a pandemic? Or when there is an emergency like Cyclone Idai? What can be put in place? What are the local structures? Is the ministry there with the people? These are the questions that she's posing for us. Pachipamwe.
Initoda kusapota zvekutaurwa nahonorable Show. Why ndichisapota izvozvo? Isusu tine maconstituency ari kumachonyonyo, tokuti kumachonyonyo. Ma-issues atiri kusangana nawo ikoko akaoma, akasimba. Especially panguva ino yelockdown. Kwabuda nyaya dzakawanda dzokuti tikakutaurirai muno runogona kudoka. But anyway, tiri kuti isusu pa-issue iyi ngapave noukama hwokudyidzana pakati peministry nemusasa project. Kuground ikoko kumachonyonyo kwatiri kutaura ikoko. Ngavabatsirwe zvekare nestructure yakaita semadzimambo. Ngavapuwe madzimambo simba rokuti kana pakaita issue iyoyo yakaita saiyoyo, problem yakaita saiyoyo, ngavakasikirwe kuti nemusasawo ngaiwanewo structure yayo iri kuground. Kunyanya musasa yacho iyoyo ikasire kubatsira vanhu. Fadike kwandinogara tine issue yemwana musikana akarepwa, mwana anga ine 6 years. Arepa mwana iye akanonoka kuatendwa. Mapurisa chaiwo anga kumutaza mwana iye akarepwa nevanhu 2, nevarume vaviri, varume vakuru vaviri. Takatozosvika pakutozofonerwa neusiku kwakuenda ikoko kuground kwacho pasi pokuti kana motikari yako kumachonyonyo yaitobva kumashokisi isisina takutonobatsira kuti tiende nemwana uya aripotwa kupolisi polisi yaitodhileya itoti tichabata tichadini but mwana asina zvakanga aitwa amai vemwana munosa zvemadzimai zvaitodzikisira udzimai vanga vari murombo zvakanyanya otherwise vamwe ndo vanenge vachikumbirawo mari kuvana nababa vaya munongoziva situation yemadzimai but zvisiri izvo anyway vakashaya kokuti vainotaura kunani saka tichiti mastructure enyu ngaadzike pasi kuground pasi kusell level kuti kana munhu asangana nedambudziko panguva ine yekufamba transport kwakusina oright dei foni yange yanga isina kuita vanhu ivo vaibatsirwa nei kuchipatara kwacho yakanoitwa delaying yekuti mwana kuti anopombwa chiyai ndakatorara ndakasvinura kutsvaga madoctors kuti mwana arapiwe ndakutonetsa kutofonera minister of health kuti vapindire ko vasina vavanobata kusina manetwork vanoitwa sei saka tikawana mastructure enyu akadzika pasi musasa project neminister of women affairs iriko but issue iriko yemazuva ano iri kunetsa but tikangobatsirana zvazvokuti madzimambo apinde mazviri ngavakwanise kudini I think ndona sekuti zvinotibatsira zvinhu zvakaita saizvozvo.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I think she brings another dimension, local leadership. What is its role in pandemics? What is its role in emergencies during, especially looking at issues like SGBV? What's going to be the role of local leadership? We need a coordinated system, response mechanism, whereby we rope in all structures that are coming up here. I think we are having a very fruitful engagement. Yes, ma'am.
Indachida kungoti dambudziko rinouya hongu asi tiri kuti isu dai imi vemusasa nevekujenda magara muchiita maworkshop vanhu vagare vane zivo kuitira kuti kana dambudziko ropinda sezvizvi havachamiriri kuti totambura tichindepi nokuti ruzivo vanenge vagara vanhago kudhara makavatrena regai kumirira kuita matrainings enyu kana pane njodzi inenge yawira sezvizvi garai vanhu vane ruzivo kubva paground.
So there's need for more awareness programs and capacity building programs so that even everyone, the public, is aware of what to do during an emergency when they are faced with sexual gender-based violence, what to do during a pandemic when they are faced with sexual gender-based violence. I think what's important is for us, for a multi-sec approach, whereby many players come into play and help so that we can achieve and respond effectively to women and girls. So it's a lot of players who respond to SGBV, and if we all come together, then we can have a multi-sectoral approach in our response to SGBV during emergencies and pandemics. Yes? Okay. Anybody to give us a thought again, ma'am? Yes, Honorable.
Awareness. Ndakabatana nenyaya yereaction, fast reaction. Do you know kuti pa 21 days pakashokwa vanhu nemi massive society, you went quiet. Ameno musasa iyo ndio pamwe yakasara ichiti chani. Pa 21 days ndakatombovhunza ndega kuti where are the women? Where are we? Takashokwa. So panoda iyoyo training kuti gare takaziva kuti zvikadai, how do we jump? When do we start? Everybody was shocked. They say, kwati kumba kwedu. Takazotanga kureacta zvo relaxwa kuti mati kudi ko vari kumbodi. Asisi ma MP ndoti ndikuudzei kuti isusu petakangotaurwa paya, we sat down tikataurana kuti todini nana mai paramba. Ndo pakashanda social media. Taitora zvima video. Petaienda tikugesa maoko kudi paya, ndo petakatumira. I did not know the power yechinhu ichi. Ndakachibata ipapo kukunda pama election. Chinhu chakashanda ichi because wese zvake munhu wetinoti tinoshanda naye kumawadi kumasero kumachi tainyora zvimessage tiita group kutumira uyu ana vekuchirumanza vana mai vaitumirawo zvavo tichiona kuti ichi chinoda kuramba chichitumirwa ichi ava vagona kutaura pamwe vaisvika pane vanhu kuti koma izwa here lockdown zvinorevei covid-19 uchiticha vanhu tichitumira vanhu vachiona munhu wevanoziva vachizwa kuti ndi MP wenzvimbo yavo ari kutotaura namainingi vanhu vakakopa chakashanda asi ndoda kutaura pareaction kuti takange takanonoka vamwe ndakazitanga kuzwa vamwe vochitifonera vachiti ko titumirei kamavhidhiyo tidai zvikazotanga kushanda after 21 days. Saka ndinoda kutaura kuti pakaita slow reaction tibatsirane vamwe vazhinji, asi ndotenda kuti vakakurumidza vakabata. Nanhasi ndo zvatiri kuita, tinotaura pai zvine zvitakusangana nenamba yakataurwa ye50 iya, asi pekutanga takashandisa steric media. Thank you.
A role of technology.
Yes, the role of technology. You sum it up nicely. So the role of technology in our response mechanism, we cannot ignore technology, but also being cognizant of the fact that sometimes we might even lack the necessary technology in the communities. So we may respond effectively, but we may face challenges whereby the person that we want to reach, the person that we want to talk to in the community, we might not be able to reach out to them. So I think it's important that we use technology and we also devise means and ways of how we can reach to the last person. And I want to appreciate that the use of technology was very important, and I want to welcome Senator Ungwe to this meeting from Harare, Senator. Thank you very much for gracing us. It's right, Senator Ungwe.
Definition yekuti essential services inoda kuti itwe redefine, because kana wanyada kumhanya kuti uende panzvimbo tsamba ikavhunzwa usiri paessential service zvaingomirira ipapo. Saka iyo panoda madefinition of terms kufacilitata kuti vanozi essential service ndevapi. Vese vanoshanda nezvayo izvo vaifanira kudefinewawo as what? Essential services. Ipapo.
I tell you, it was difficult to convince someone kuti ndiri kumhanya kuofisi kune munhu andoda inoita counseling. You know? Wakuvunzwa tsamba, aiwa hatisi kutomboteerera, you know? Idzokerai zvenyu itodzokerai. Why? Because the response to GBV was not essential. You know? So I think it's important that when a pandemic is declared, we also say, no, before you go any further, we need to declare gender SGBV services as emergency, as essential. It's also an emergency in an emergency. And what does
to actually be used kuresponda to specific needs dzevakadzi nevarume, but money then is used by one person. It means then you've actually violated vanhu ivavo. But the issue of definitions is very important. Mumwe mupurisa akanditi parodhi ndamurakidza tsamba yangu ndichifeel very important. Zvikanzi mabva kupi ndikati gender commission. Zvikanzi kuma4 kuno kugender commission mukuenda kupi kuessential service. Akangosanganawo neniwo sorry musoko ndikati nini ndiri kutonotarisa vari kuita essential service vacho ndosaka ndiri kuenda ndiri kutonoona nezvavari kuita achibva anyarara. So I'm just saying to you, when people hear the word gender, for them there is something else they understand. Zvokuti ukati iwe uri kutomhanyawo neessential havasi kuunderstand kuti gender yaipona papi panyaya essential, because for them essential is food provision, it's water provision, it's this and that. So the definitions are very important. But I also wanted to say, as we talk about the role of technology is very good, and really good. It's good also in helping us solve problems, but it's also good in making problems. What I'm saying is technology, even within the pandemic, iri kutoshandiswawo nevamwe kutoviolata marights, kutoita GBV. I think we've actually seen my pictures sometimes that are just circulating atinoona. And so as we talk about role from this perspective, we need to be thinking about the two sides, the positive and the negative, and what is it we need to do to counter. Like vanhu vakawanda don't realize kuti mukaona picture isingaite patechnology, pasocial media, mukaona kana kuti mapicture evanhu vari kurepwa kana kuti evana vari kuita zvisirizvo, ukacirculata iwe watopa midzira. A lot of us will be thinking to raise awareness. And at some point, I've also wondered in my own work, because you need to share with someone. But as you share, it means it's actually going further. So violation very panning my subjects, social media, engage to end further. So it's important that we understand the role of technology from the negative and also from the positive.
Yes, I think that's very critical. Yes, ma'am.
It's just to add on to what she has been speaking on around understanding the gender or the GBV issues. There's also the critical issue around sexual exploitation and abuse. During, women and girls become more vulnerable in these. And this abuse at times is perpetrated by those that are supposed to be protecting them. So that is another area that really needs attention.
Yes. I think after lunch we'll delve more into that area as well. How can we solve that problem of further abuse from the people who are supposed to protect the women, but there might be sextortion, there might be exploitation, there might be issues where some people take advantage of the vulnerable, and I think I will discuss more on that. But that's a very critical factor in pandemics and emergencies, and it happens not only in our country but everywhere across the world. Where there is a pandemic and an emergency, we do not again the rise in exploitation to women and girls especially. Any other thoughts on strengthening accountability? Yes, ma'am.
The last one.
Why last one?
Just because there is a pandemic does not mean that the role of those institutions who are supposed to monitor transparency imomo, you monitor from afar. It's not the same.
And it becomes very difficult for you. You can't get then all the answers when you're outside. So I think it's important that all the institutions that do monitoring and accounting for us as a nation should be involved whenever there are issues of national interest and there are issues of emergencies and pandemics. So we, like what she's rightfully saying, where is the parliament in the task force? And where is also the commission in the task force, the gender commission, so that some of these issues that are underlying yet very crucial can also be brought to the forefront. Right now we are talking about them, but the lockdown is not, the COVID-19 is not over. It's still ongoing, and the women are facing these challenges. And we are saying, where do we go from here? What are the critical steps that needs to be done? And as we are talking, we are already seeing some of the solutions to the challenges that we are currently facing in terms of sexual gender-based violence. And we are asking the same questions. Where is Parliament? We are asking the same question. Where is the Gender Commission? Where are the monitors and the custodians of accountability? Where are they placed in the agenda in our response to SGBV in pandemics and emergencies? Yes?
Ngofunga futhi kuti tikataura chidaro pamwe zvinoita kunge zvanzima kuda kuita ma-implementer. But
Yes.
the idea is that point is not coming in as being part of the implementation structure. It's saying even as we then have the implementation structures, let's also think about how we facilitate the monitoring structures to also do their work. Because there are times where your questions are answered by sitting somewhere. If you're going and saying we want to come and talk to you, like it's gender, gender commission, and we want to talk to you, depending on what that institution believes about their own situation as far as gender is concerned, sometimes they are not very responsive. So sometimes if there is a process whereby my implementer aita zvaanoita, at some point they also need to then reach out or facilitate a process where you also get to hear or find out what is happening. A lot of the times we suspect the West as long as we don't have information.
Oh, yes.
Yet maybe it's only because uri kure nekurikiitika zvinhu saka hausi kutonzwisisa the reasoning behind some of the ezvinezvi ndakwana.
Yes, Honorable.
ndikwanewo asi ndoda kuchipedzisa ndine 2 items. Number 1, iye tanga tichitaura iyoyi inoda kuti vanhu vacho vari affected, like ngatipoti vasikana, panoda futi involvement of that youth. Vasikana vedu tanga tichitaura vaya kuti pakushanda paya vari mumastructure, unoziva kuti mwana ukashanda nezera rako unozviwisisa. Saka maybe majunior parliamentarians vaye kana veyouth vamwe, Ministry of Youth inge iri futi imomo munyaya, so that achipiwa advice newezera rake zvinokurumidza kudini kuwikwa. Imwe yacho yandinoona ilanguage barrier. Mukatarisa paTV paya panonyanyobuda English poita Shona poita Chindevere, ko vamwe vaya kana iye masign beta yapo yevasinganzwi yemasign language ameno webraille vari deaf kuti vanonga veinzwa zvipi. Then vamwewo vari kure kachana kwanga kuchataurwa matonga chichi language barrier ngapagadziriswe so that when information is disseminated inosvika in the rightful language munhu onyatsonzwisisa, kwete kungoti chirungu chishona nechindevere gume. I think ndaguma weka.
Hansi language barrier handiti. In terms of like what she was saying, kuti chinombonzi gender chacho chi. Chinombonzi GBV, are we making assumptions kuti vanhu vanoziva kuti SGBV chi in its practicality? Munhu anozviziva here kuti kune marital rape, for example? Kana kuti anongoti aiwa ndakabvisirwa mari saka ndoshaizvo zviri kuitika. Munhu anoziva here kuti kune child marriage? Kana kuti ari kungoti ndozva mudzimai wangu ndakatompuwa ndikatorora. Handiti, do people understand SGBV? Do people understand kurepwa? Do people understand the terms that we use isusu as professionals in the field? Kana kuti tikutotaura something foreign. So as we raise awareness as well, let's try and raise it in the language that people can easily grasp in a language that people can understand, so that at least we have an effective response mechanism. So that and also language should be inclusive of everyone, of every sector in the country. Let it be included as well. I think Mr. Shimposa, we come to the end of our plenary. Yeah, Tambueta, a discussion. Thank you very much. I'll hand this over to you.
Thank you very much for leading the session, where we have been highlighting challenges faced in enhancing our response to GBV. Some of the challenges that we have highlighted include the legislative, the issue of structures have been discussed, where we also need structures at grassroots level, even at national level. Although some, they said, yes, they should start at grassroots, going upwards, but all in all, we need the structures at every level. We also discussed on some, they also discussed on, highlighted the issue of best practices. Yes, we also need to learn from others. When we go it solo, we will not do much, but also need to learn from others how they also tackle such issues, especially in emergencies. Here we have two emergencies. We had two emergencies, one of the cyclone Idai and the other one that we are still in, the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown. We also discussed on, I think this one, the language barrier. Yes, we concentrate more English, Shona, Ndebele, but I think we have over 16 languages in Zimbabwe. We don't consider that, and it means that it poses as a challenge in itself, because there is a group of people, there are groups which are left out by the information or the awareness. So I think this is what we, in this session, this is what we are highlighting. And I'm sure in the next session, we'll be talking about now coming up with what can we do? What do we need to do so that we'll have something to take home for implementation. So thank you very much, Rotina. May we give a pam-pam. Like I said, good wine needs no bush again. Right. At this point in time, maybe we need now to go for tea, but welcome, she has been welcomed. Welcome, Senator Ungwe. She is not late, but I'm sure she has been delayed. Was she of her roles? So, Senator Ungwe, maybe you just want, yes, these are parliamentarians that we have, and they are from Midlands. Some are from Mashonaland. We are in Mash West, isn't it? Some they call it Mash Best. And we also have from Harare, we have from the Gender Commission. We also have from our courts, and we also have from our head office ministry, and also we have also brought our chief provincial coordinator, Ms. Kampila, for Harare, she's also right. So these are the people here, and maybe I know you may want to say just hi, as we end this session, just say hi.
Thank you. He is saying I must say hi. Makadini. Sorry, yenyu tangoti nonokei. Asita zongosvika. Tamburasika tingo muzvimakona zvacho. Aiwa, toda kuti tingotenda. I think the lesson yatiri kuwana panapa, it is going to help us a lot, since I can see some of my colleagues here from Midlands, from Mash Best. Yes. Thank you so much. Na bro wangu weku Gender Commissioner. Togara ndichimu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable. I thought you were going to, you are used to talk and talk and talk, and then at the end say with these few words. But thank you, it was short and precise, isn't it? I just wanted you to greet people. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable parliamentarians and everyone here, may we now break for tea, and then we want you to come refreshed so that you bring good ideas to the table on how we can tackle the issue that we are gathered here for. So we may go for tea to end up dining. Thank you.